Okay. So the chat want to know when you gonna have time to go in.
Oh, I'm ready.
Oh, go! I'm waiting on you.
Oh, in the Haitian Constitution, it says that Haitians shall henceforward be known only by the generic appellation of blacks. And this was in 1805, which was before the time where Black Americans started using the term, which is why I'm very surprised that a lot of Black Americans try to gatekeep the term Black as it was used by people from the islands before you.
Okay. So
I
just a
think
little
it's
bit.
very unfair.
Right. So a little bit about me. I'm a low key historian. Okay. So now you just translated some things in English. What did it say in Creole French? The word BLACK was not there in 1805. So I would like to know what term did they use in their constitution, and I'm gonna tell you all about that. I know a lot about Haitian history, and I know about the term that you might not be aware of. I'll tell you if you're not aware of the term they use in Creole French.
I can go ahead and try and find it, or you could tell me the term.
Okay, it's LESNOIR, les noir. Okay, so that was a term they gave themselves temporarily to galvanize Haitians to fight against not the French, because they called the French Blanco. So it was the Blancos versus the Noirs. These are temporal terms they call themselves and they call their ops. Now we know the French is not Blanco. We know the French is French. So these are temporal terms they call the French, and they used to galvanize the Haitians against the French. Okay, so this was used during war only. Once the war, this was not a primary ethnonym, right? I'm gonna break down ethnonym, endonym, and exonym in a second. So this was a term they used to galvanize each other as like a nickname, a temporary nickname for war. Once the war ended, I think 2 years it lasted. After that, Dessalines said, "We are the Haitians." So that was the primary endonym, ethnonym that they gave the Haitians. That's their primary name we ever known them by, not Les Noir. They never called themselves Les Noir in their social lives. Hey, my Les Noir brother. They never said that, or my Noir brother. They never said that. That was a term they like. Let's go fight. Like how we would say, come on, warriors, let's go fight. We'll call each other warriors. Any galvanizing terms to get each other to fight. So that was a galvanizing war term they used for each other's. That was not a primary ethnonym. Ethnonym is the actual name you use to call yourself on a day-to-day basis, globally, nationally, internally. And they made it up. They called themselves that. That's an endonym. That's a name within the group. Okay. But that was not their primary term. And guess what? It's noir. It's not black. My argument is literally BLACK. So Haitians aren't BLACK. They're noir. And noir, again, in French, is a galvanizing term that was only used for war. Okay. So nobody on planet Earth called themselves after a skin color. That was something the Europeans and the colonizers period was doing. So you had Arabs who called the Kushites, the Nubians, the people from Mali. They called them Balad al Sudan. They called them a name after their skin color. So nobody on earth called themselves a primary ethnonym after their skin color. Nobody has ever done that. That was Europeans. That's called an exonym. Outsiders calling you something you didn't call yourself, and it was always used in a derogatory sense. There's no need to identify your color when all y'all are that same color. So Europeans and other lighter people seeing dark skinned people, they seen their skin as inferior. That's why they made highlighted their skin color. So you got Europeans who call people of dark hue negro, and that came with inferiority, and it had slave connotations to it.
So you're saying that noir was specifically used
For war, yep,
during the war, right?
yep, that's it.
Again, you said that I translated it. Noir means black. Same way. They also use neg, which also means black.
Wait, hold on,
And
hold on. So now here's the thing: meaning something, and like for example, a four-legged feline, a cat means four-legged feline, but we don't go around saying, "Hey, look at that four-legged feline," right? We don't go around saying, "Look at that instrument on four wheels and an engine." That no, I'm getting to my four-wheel instrument with gas and no, and then, no, we say car. So we don't identify people by the meaning of a word. We define people by the word. So if neg and noir means black, then what does black mean? Because black Americans, we don't say neg or noir. We say black.
exactly, you guys primarily speak English.
No,
So you
listen.
wouldn't use the term neg or noir. You would
I I,
specifically say black
I
because
got you,
that's
but
what it means in English.
I got you. But wouldn't black have a definition?
Exactly. The definition is of your skin color. You are
No,
black.
no.
Your phenotype, you're black.
No. Okay. Listen. Maybe this skipped you. Europeans and Arabs, they are the only people who call people a color based on their skin tone. Africans, nobody, listen to me, you can Google this. Nobody on earth has ever named themselves after their skin color. That was an outside colonizer thing. I gave you two examples. Bilal al Sudan, they named the Kushites, the Nubians, after their skin color, and it was derogatory. It was in a derogatory sense. You had Portuguese people and Spaniards running around calling everybody negro by their skin color in a derogatory sense. Uh, Africans, Haitians, Jamaicans, or anybody of dark hue did not name themselves after their skin. That was a colonizer practice. Black Americans, we didn't name ourselves after our skin color because Prince, the formerly artist, formerly named Prince as the artist, he is light as snow. He's not dark skinned. The average black American is not dark skinned. I'm not dark skinned. So black to us, when we say black banks, are we naming a bank after our skin color? When we say Black Wall Street, when we say Black Love, Black Pride, Black Power, are we naming the color of our skin? So for us, black had nothing to do or little to do with skin color and more to do with a struggle and experience in America. So black to us
So
was
you're
the
using it more as a descriptor term or
no,
cultural term.
well, sort of. So black in Black American use, we use black as a proper noun. You can Google that right now. It's going to show that Black Americans use black as a proper noun. Black used anywhere else was an adjective. But again, but even if it was used in any proper noun sense, it was outsiders calling them that. So Black Americans, black to us meant a 400-year struggle. So this is before FBA. This is before ADOS. That's why I say we name everything associated with us black, and that's not color. We say black economics. We say black on black crime, right? Ain't that something? That's not
Yep.
after. That's not after a skin color. That's after who we are, right? So that goes deeper than the skin color, and that be the problem when people say they're black. They usually point at their skin color. And when they do that, they're using the lens of the oppressor because only the colonizing oppressors call people of African descent after their color. So I keep saying that. You can Google that real fast. Those are called exonymic names from colonizers. So when people say they're black and they point to their skin color, they're using black in the derogatory sense of their colonizers. So even when we were called negro, right, colored people negro, we were called outside of our name in a disrespectful, derogatory way, right? So it was negro in color. We're not called black. So in the 100, 200 years later, after we fought for our freedom and the Emancipation Proclamation and the 14th Amendment, all that stuff happened. Later down the line, we decided to name ourselves. We no longer want to be called colored and Negro, right? That's what we were being called for some time. So we felt like, okay, this is slave man colonizer titles, which they are, and we said, okay, well, we're black, and black doesn't mean what you said it mean. To us, black means A, B, and C. That's called an endonym. That's when the inside crew name themselves and the exonym outsiders don't name you. So when we say, can Africans be black, for us is no.
So you're using your descriptor term. So you're just
No,
saying
no,
like, I'm specifically black because I'm describing the black experience in America, and
no,
that's what
no,
makes me black, and I'm a black American, you
no,
know.
no, that's not what I said. You keep saying descriptor. Descriptor is an adjective. I just told you, if you Google black, how black Americans use black as a noun or proper noun or adjective, just Google that and you're going to get proper noun. So we're not using black as a descriptor term. We're using black as a proper noun. So black in America is capitalized with a B, capital B. It's not a lower, so all adjectives are lowercase. They're not capitalized. Only proper nouns are capitalized. So in America, we got black capitalized. So the first letter is capital B. That's a proper noun. It's not a descriptor. We're not describing something. We are that. And what we're doing is we're not describing, we're naming our unique ethnogenesis. The Haitians, Guyanese, everybody went through their ethnogenesis, and you named yourselves based on that. We named ourselves black. We never named ourselves before then. Our colonizers named us something. They named us colored. They call us Niger. They call us negro. They call us all type of crazy derogatory terms, right? But we knew we would get no respect globally, representing a name from our colonizers. So what we did was we looked back and called our entire journey. We identified our entire journey in America as black. So we're not describing, we're naming our entire experience, our entire ethnogenesis in America.
See, as you're doing this, I'm searching this up. So just like, make sure I could correct myself from wrong and speak about what I'm right. I can't immigrate into ethnicity, but I can be erased around the ethnicity's culture. I'm saying, and this isn't to you, of course, this is to someone who's addressing me in the comments. I was raised predominantly around black culture. I see black idols. I see Beyonce. I see all of this. Those were my idols. I'm
Right.
not looking at the Caribbean. I'm not looking at Caribbean idols for my black idols in America. I'm specifically looking at black American women to represent me because I was a black little girl. I could
Okay.
say I'm Guyanese all I want. And culturally or ethnic wise, I would be raised as a Guyanese girl.
Right.
But I am still black. At the end of the day, I would still be black.
So and that's why we would say, in what sense? So you're saying you would be honorary black because you adopted the culture. Is that fair?
That is fair. I would say I'm honorary black because I adopted the culture. And
Right.
I'd still be treated. My whole idea on this whole black thing is I understand a lot of you guys use it to describe your struggle or something like that. It is typically, I looked it up, correct me if I'm wrong, but it can be used as a descriptor term.
Yeah. No. 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 You can't. Okay. Okay. So you got to see that the thing about research is that it got to be worded correctly. Yes, people do use black as a descriptive term, but around the world,
Yeah, it's a
after
proper noun. It could be used
wait,
as a proper noun.
hold on, listen, what I'm saying. The people who use it as a descriptive term, they're borrowing the derogatory terms from their former colonizers, because they were called Negro and they were called Balad al Sudan. They didn't call themselves that. They have tribal names or they have country names. We just talked about people from Guyana are Guyanese. They're not black, right? They don't call themselves black. They don't have a black flag. They have a Guyanese flag. They have a Guyanese culture. Nothing about the country is black, right? In no sense possible, other than your skin. Some people's skin, because you got light Guyanese people too. So, so when you ask AI, you got to be very specific. You got to say, you got to say, use the words. You saying descriptor? People do call themselves black as a descriptor. We see it all the time. When Jamaicans call up, they'll say they're black and they'll point at their skin. So he's using it as a descriptor. But you got to ask AI, when black Americans use black to identify themselves, their ethnic group, their ethnicity, are they using black as a descriptor or a proper noun? Are they describing their entire experience? And I'm black, and black my whole entire life. My mom black, dad black, grandma, and we never looked at our skin to say I'm black. So we don't point to our skin when we say we're black. We point to our unique ethnogenesis in this country to argue that we're black. And it's not an argument, it's a group name we came up with. It's an inner name. And that name is our ethnical name, right? Uh, that's it. Like we called ourselves black. We're known as Black Americans to the world. There's no other name. Like so, if you look at an African person, check this out. You look at an African person, they're African. That's one name. They're Nigerian, two names. They're Igbo, three names. And then they're back there American when they come here. So that's five names that they associate with. When Black Americans, we just associate with one. We're just black. We're known as the black people. Malcolm X was known as a black Muslim. He was known as a African Muslim or something like that. Black Muslim, meaning that his origins are traced in the United States. So I thought you were going to say now you're black racially. Now nobody can take that away from you. So if you're going to be black in any sense, you're going to be black racially. You're going
I have a question real quick though. You brought up Malcolm
to,
X, and you said that you could trace all his lineage back to being American. But
who's that?
Malcolm X's
Oh,
mother was Grenadian, which is a Caribbean island. But you guys still hail him as one of the best Black Americans.
okay.
So
Now
yes, he
watch
was
this.
mixed. Technically, he's ethnically mixed.
Yeah, yeah. So nobody really argues that, or they shouldn't. He is mixed. You're right. He's half Grenadian and he's half foundational Black American. Like
Yeah,
he
he's
could rep.
bi.
Yeah. So he could technically rep either either one. You feel me? Nobody's argue that definitely lineages. But do you understand when I say that you're black racially?
Yeah, of course. Obviously, if you look at me, you're gonna see I'm Black. I got the big nose. I got my
No,
big
no,
lips.
no. You keep going. Well, I guess racially, they
Yeah,
just have.
racially, that's my phenotype.
Yeah, but what about Prince? Prince is also considered black racially. He don't have that,
I mean, you could
right?
just tell Princess Black.
Oh, okay. Well, how about this? How the African is white in America during the 1800s, 1900s? Are you aware of that?
Pardon?
Are you aware
Pardon?
that many foundation black?
You
Are
were
you
breaking
aware
up
that?
for a second. That's what I'm asking you.
Okay. Okay. Are you aware that many foundation black Americans during the late 1800s and early 1900s passed as white?
Yeah,
Right.
you guys were
So
white
it's not a
passing.
phenotype. But it's not a phenotype then. Well, it's part. I would say this. I would say the race black is somewhat phenotype and also ancestry. So I think that's better framing. It's ancestry based and it's also phenotype based, but it's really just ancestry based. Like if you look up the definition how the OMB defined black, it's definitely ancestry based because again you can look completely white or Hispanic and your ancestry don't go there; it goes to somewhere in Africa. So the race black is ancestry based; it's not phenotype based, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so racially you be black, all right. But now that so the catch on about that is that yeah in America racially you're black and Western influence is pushing the racial category to call people black racially. And the confusion is that now black serves a dual purpose, right? It has a dual usage. It represents a race of people, which is billions of people, and it also represents a unique, exclusive ethnic group that's in the United States, which is 40 something million, 50 something million people. So now that causes the confusion. Now, I'm gonna put you on game. The racial construct was another way. Are you familiar with paper genocide?
Yes, I am familiar with paper
Okay,
genocide.
so can you briefly just run that back to us, just like summarize it? My fault. I think I got muted. Yeah, when you get a chance, can you just summarize? If not, I'll summarize it for you. Matter of fact, I'll do it for you. So, paper genocide was the act of white people, white team man.
Could you hear me?
No, I couldn't hear you. No, not when you on mute. I ain't better hear you. Okay, give you a second. All right. Yeah, so that's interesting. Like when somebody's have, let's say, Jamaican and half FBA, right? Do Jamaica see them as Jamaican, or do they see them as half Jamaican? Because when somebody's FBA, all we say by FBA, you can trace one parent to U.S. chattel slavery. No matter what you're mixed with, we embrace you as full FBA. Like you have rights to the lineage. You have claim to the lineage. So I wonder if that's how that's seen in the island or Africa. Like when somebody's half from an African country and FBA, or half from the Caribbean and FBA. I wonder if they see that person as wholly Caribbean or African. That's a question for the chat.
All right, I've returned.
Okay. All right. So paper genocide. So the whole race thing is a real uh situation that white people are doing, right? It's for a reason. The reason why they're grouping up everybody as black, like they could have came up with any old name, but they decided to choose Black Americans ethnic name, right? They could have chose something else. That's like choosing Haitian as the global name for people of African descent. I'm pretty sure Haitians will be offended. Or just imagine all of African ancestry people are called Guyanese out of nowhere because white man says so. I'm sure Guyanese people will feel like, wow, thank you. You just diluted our, unique experiences on Earth. Well, that's what he did with black. White people who been born with us since day one has did many things to us, and now the latest thing is they're grouping up people with our ethnic name, which is weird to us. So, paper genocide, right? Originally, that's a term that was it was an action. It was a moment in history where indigenous Americans were being erased, you know, by the paper, right? So they had rights to land, they had rights to other things, and they were being excluded off of the paperwork. Like their names were not
Yeah,
attached to
their
it.
identities and legal existence was gone
Right. And how was it going? Do you know how it was going?
through bureaucracy.
Say that again?
Through bureaucracy.
Right. But what was they classified? So they had to be classified as somebody, right? So what were they classified instead of indigenous Americans?
That I cannot tell you.
Okay, they were classified as Negroes and mulattoes. So to steal their land, they had to say, "What land? You're Negro. You're mulatto. You don't have no land. Only indigenous Americans have land." Gaslighting them. So that was the paper genocide. They erased them. They erased them from the paper and pretended that they were just Negro, mulatto, and have no rights to land, right? And these people had no, when they try to trace their lineage today, uh, they have ancestry genealogical records, but the paper don't list them as indigenous people, and that's a big thing. Now, the reverse is happening today. So just a summary: indigenous Americans were reclassified as Negroes and mulattoes. So they changed the name of indigenous Americans to other people that don't have no land ties or land rights. Now, in today in Black American society, the opposite is happening. They're calling everybody black. So they're not erasing us on paper where they're reclassifying us. They're doing the opposite. They're reclassifying everybody else as us. So Nigerians are now black. Jamaicans are now black. Guyanese people are now black. Every Haitians are now black on paper, only on paper in America. And the paper is when everybody checked that box, Black African American. So when they check that box, they represent Black America, the ethnicity on top of the race. So now unique things that was designed just for Black Americans are now spread thin with millions of new arrived people that can check the box. Uh, Anywhere from Sudanese people, just name the African country, all of them can check the box, Black American. And so they're erasing us by assimilation. They're including everybody to the black box. Now, the trick is this: the 14th Amendment Equal Protection Clause, it doesn't allow any benefits, any money allocation, any resources for a race. Okay. So we're like, wait a minute. Wait, the government did us dirty. They owe us things legally. We have claims, we have demands from claims, legal claims. And now you're saying we're not owed it simply because you label other people black with this social construct race? They're like, yeah, because that's reverse racism. Don't you guys hate racism? Right. So no, we can't offer nobody nothing or give anybody nothing based on race. So that is the paper genocide the other way, where they reclass everybody as black to 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 finesse us out of historical harms in America that need to be righted. So that is the reason why we delineated. We had no choice. So in order to get around that loophole they gave us, hey, if you're black by race, we don't. So basically, they don't care that black is also ethnicity. The fact is tied to a race. We cannot ever ask for nothing, demand anything that's due to us under the name black because they assimilated other people. That's the paper genocide in reverse. So this is the reason why we have feel a certain way when people who already have an identity come to America and assume black, even though it's not their fault. A lot of them are unaware of it, but we know just like the indigenous Americans when they were reclassified as mulatto and Negro, it wasn't Negroes and mulattoes' fault, but they still felt a certain way because now they're identified as Negroes and mulattoes, and they're not. So even when a Negro mulatto called them a Negro mulatto, they like offended. Like, okay, stop calling me that. I'm indigenous. So the same way over here, when people assimilate and take our name and we know the finesse behind it, we get offended, even though it's not necessarily their fault. It's our government fault. The same government who paper genocided indigenous people or paper genociding black Americans in 2026. Does that make any sense?
Yes, actually, that does make a lot of sense. And I do think that every FBA, every Caribbean person in respective countries, of course, should receive their reparations from their governments or from their countries. I do think that we all should receive our reparations. Of course, I would say that a lot of Caribbeans or Africans that immigrated here shouldn't receive reparations from American governments, but from their own governments in their native countries. But I do believe that FBA should receive reparations.
Yeah. So even if um
Yeah, I
Caribbean,
know you guys can't receive them because they classified all of us as black.
right, and then even if Caribbean or Africans tried to receive reparations, they couldn't because white people will say prove you have, you know what I mean, because they're gonna say prove, just like with the Japanese people. Japanese people from the 1988 Civil Liberty Act, they got their reparations from the internment camp of 1940s, right, during World War II. Now they're considered Asian as a race. That means Chinese, Philippine people, right? Hawaiians.
I mean, Hawaiians, would you really count Hawaiians as Asians? I've always just considered them Polynesians
No, but I think
or
racially,
just Pacific Islanders.
but I think racially they're classified as Asian. I don't know 100%, but I
I'm
think
gonna look that up real quick on my
yeah,
iPad.
I think they're classified as Asian. I would like to know that. Yeah, this dude walked into the store looking like a Jim Jones. Dude look like he look. This dude look like Jim Jones on crack.
While I'm doing that, I would say that I think the main reason a lot of people who have an ethnic background that are black but not black Americans feel so offended. And I would say this because we obviously we all come from different cultures, right?
Yep.
And I think it's beautiful that you guys have come to create your own culture and come to create your own influences on the world. You guys are very powerful people. But I will also say that when we come here, and this is not any of our faults. When we come here, we're classified as black, and they will
Right.
treat us the same way they treat a black American. I'm still going to get pulled over. I'm still going to get treated unjustly simply due to the color of my skin. So I think the disconnect here between these ethnic groups is that obviously we're thinking of it as black as a whole race, not ethnic group, but you guys are specifically thinking of it as an ethnic group.
Right. Because even though you might be pulled over because of your skin color, okay, the disaggregated numbers don't lie. Okay, so the disaggregated numbers, it shows that immigrants and do way better than Black Americans. So that means that even though you would be caught up in the net on certain things, racial profiling, that doesn't apply in the workforce. It doesn't apply in school. It doesn't apply on forms that matter. Housing, welfare, SNAPs, any type of resources that does not show. The disaggregated data shows that you are not being treated as Black Americans because Black Americans are, are, are under employed, more likely to face housing discrimination. Because the bottom line is this: although some people can look like us, when you're filling out something, you got to write down your name. And if that name ain't Black Americanish, that's when people say, okay, they're not the targeted uh, ethnic group that we're looking after. See, so one thing about that's why I said paper genocide. White people don't want to right the wrong, right? So they're trying to justify not righting the wrong. So they were pretend that Black Americans than what they are by aggregated data. And aggregated data just means they're lumping up immigrant African Caribbean success with financial Black American success. So it makes it look like we're doing better than what we are. So they'll say, "See, we're doing better with our equity program."
He is cutting off.
Because when you disaggregate the number, okay,
Well, can I interrupt you right there real quick? As
sure,
Corey is an online alias. I only use it online. That's not my real name.
okay.
But as someone with a name that is very close to, I guess, quote unquote stereotypical Black American name, my name is very close to the name of Shaniqua. Every time I write it down, I've gotten Shaniqua, Shaniqua. My name is not Shaniqua. My name is something else. Still has the SH at the front, but I've gotten close to Shaniqua. And I've still been
What about
treated the same
the last?
as,
Wait. Okay,
pardon?
hold on, Corey. What about the last name? Is the last name close to the Foundation of Black American last name?
I've never thought of you guys as having typical last names. I've always thought last
No,
names varied.
no. We got
I mean,
American English last
give me a
name.
stereotypical Black last name.
Okay, Williams.
Hmm.
Williams. We got Jenkins. We got Washington.
I know a lot of Johnsons.
Okay, we got Johnsons. We got my last name is Harrison. Yeah, no, there's some typical yeah, all the sons, because Johnson is the plantation name.
Well, my
John is
last
your.
name is Jefferson.
So we got Jackson. Yeah, so Jefferson, another one, is a typical. Yeah, so listen, you might be. So now here's the thing: when we talk about systemic racism and the things we're talking about collectively. So what happens is people point to the individual realities, and it's not about individualism. Individualism. It's about the collective. So that's why I say there are some people who are non-foundational Black American, and they look like us, and some of them will be treated and discriminated and all that type stuff because they have a similar name and that can happen, right? Um, that's possible, but that you are the exception. You're not the rule. So a lot of times people make the exception the rule when you can't do that. Like that's not like that like there's no integrity there. What happens is people go with the rule. The rule is the rule, and the exception is the exception, but you don't conflate the two, right? So most people who are non-Chinese Black American, they're not going to have one of our names. Matter of fact, there's some. I taught a lot of East Indians, and they be having straight up Lily Anglo names, right? Anglo English names. John, John, because they change their name when they get here,
Hmm.
right? So we know that happens because my students, I know they change their names. I ask them like, how your name get to be Stephen? They tell you, and you got a lot of Chinese people who also change their name when they get here too. I think that's more common. Um, but these are the exception. The average Chinese person did not change their name. His name is Li Chang, things like that. And the average East Indian did not change their name. The average person from the Caribbean is probably going to have something that ties them to their name. And then you have names that's from the Caribbean that's typically Caribbean. Like you got Garfield, you got Dwayne, you got certain names that really ties to the Caribbean where when you give us a name like Garfield Dwayne, we already know okay, he's most likely not 100%, but it's a good chance he's non-foundational, right? Now there are other ways people show that they're not Black American. So when people say, "Hey, when I get pulled over, you get pulled over," well, I don't know about that because when I get pulled over, I get pulled over. When other people get pulled over, they have a flag in their car, and that flag is a dead giveaway. I'm not foundational Black American. And then if you even know the history of like Ellis Island, the early 1900s, like people, a lot of Caribbean people used to talk with an accent, or wear like certain clothes to represent, or wear like certain rings to represent this is not foundational Black American, or they would have their lodge paperwork to show they're not foundation Black Americans. So people of dark hue have always, even the Moors would show, hey, I'm a Moors national. You can't do anything with me. So like people who are non-foundation Black American have a track record of understanding that if you're Black American, you are the target. So all I got to do is prove I'm not that, and I'm allowed to do whatever. You can Google this. People that's dark as midnight were able to be in white only environments as long as they proved they were not Black American. They were allowed to be drinking out of a white only water fountain, movie theaters, dinings that said whites only. They were allowed in those environments as long as they can prove they are not foundation Black American.
I've never heard of nothing like that.
Oh yeah,
I'm
that's
not
why I
gonna.
say
I'm not gonna say you wrong, but I never heard of nothing like
I'm
that.
not wrong. That's why I say I'm a low key historian. That's why I like to have these conversations because most people when they have these conversations on TikTok, they upload it on YouTube, and then I do a reaction. I'm like, I got to get to TikTok because I don't see like a lot of people, a lot of like historians that could go deep into these topics to break it all down. I see like people are just uh, talking about these things with their hearts, but not really like an academic background or with sources like resources. But yeah, that's a fact. People um, would that's why you have like the more scientific America. Like a lot of those guys believe they're free white persons. Like so they're misrepresenting the 1790 Naturalization Act when it said people who had the status free white person could benefit from the tangibles of America, right? But if you were not considered a free white person, you were excluded from civil liberties and owning homes and land. You had to be a free white person to own land and homes and have basic rights, basic civil rights. So even Eastern Europeans and Southern Europeans were not considered free white persons at first. The Irish, the Italians, the Jewish people, they were not considered free white persons. So you got traumatized Black Americans who are reading that law incorrectly or that act incorrectly, and they're calling themselves more science temple people, more science citizens, and they're saying they're free white persons. It's like, dude, we're far past the 1970 Naturalization Act. That was overrid by the 14th Amendment. Like, you don't got to be a free white person, bro. You can be who you are, and you're supposed to be do these civil liberties and able to have land ownership. But these people still think that status thing applies today. That they're stuck in time. But these are the conversations I have with people. You know, I extend the conversation to Moors and all type of people of different backgrounds. Because, like I said, I'm a low key, like historian. I know these things, and I try to edify people. Hey, that's not what it is, or this is what it is. So when I say are Africans black, are Caribbeans black, I'll let the brother. He left. But when people say when I say are Caribbean people black, are Africans black, you can only say you're black a couple of different ways, and that's why I say it's either going to be uh, a racial descriptor, right? So you're going to say African descent, but again, that is an exonym. You're racially black because white people said you are, not because of the West Indies said they are, right? And that's not because of an African said they are. All of these racial labels came from colonizers. So they're looking at themselves from a colonizer lens. Now, in Black American, that's taboo. You know, we're quick to call you coon, whitewash, all type of things when you repeat a perspective or look at life from the lens of a white person, like an enslaver or a colonizer. We really, really resent that. And as you see, we're quick to call somebody a tether, a coon, sellout. We're quick to do that. Once we
Oh
think
yeah, I've seen y'all call us tethers.
no, but it's not just you. I'm saying Candace Owens, she's considered foundation Black American. We call her a coon. You got Larry
I
Elder.
swore Candace was Caribbean. It says something like that on her LinkedIn.
Nah, she's mixed. She's mixed. So people like her, who's foundational, we call her. Some people call her tether because they just mad at her, but she's actually mixed. She's like Malcolm.
Oh, so
Uh,
she's bi-ethnic.
yeah, yeah. So, but she will be eligible for to be considered foundation Black American if she wants to choose that side of the lineage. Because a lot of people they pick and choose; they don't really go with both. But her, we got Larry Elder, who's completely foundation Black American, and he, I mean, I don't know a tether worse than him. And again, a tether is not every immigrant. We got to keep re-explaining this. Just like a coon isn't every foundation Black American, right? Just like a white supremacist isn't every white person. Okay, so we believe actions get you the label. So if a black man is if a Black American foundational man is telling you systemic racism doesn't exist, you're your own worst enemy, and
Yeah, you're
you're
a coon.
right, you're a coon. Like Malcolm X used the term coon, Uncle Tom. So this is known in black. This is part of our culture. We label people for the good and bad. uh, Even in like gang culture, even in a negative sense, like they name each other. Okay, this person is repping this gang, but he's really a snitch, or they try to
All
discredit him.
right, yeah.
Right, that he's not official, basically. So
I'm
when
saying like
we
I know the culture. I've been raised around
right,
the culture. That's what I'm saying. Like I guess I would be honorary Black American, but I know the culture.
right. So now wait, honorary Black American is a earned tag. So this is
You called
somebody
me one earlier. I'm only using what you called me.
right. Well, I'm saying that if you were a writer, so in that context, so we have somebody that come on my YouTube channel from Jamaica. His name is Tiger. His YouTube name is Tiger Crane Shakir. Now this guy's a writer. He's a writer. He's not confused or anything. He knows what we're talking about. He actually was. He used to join the panel. We had hella dialogues. Like he even hit me onto some history that or some talking points that I didn't consider. Yeah, so now that's a writer, and now I've been seeing Africans breaking down delineation, explaining to the world and other Africans and other Caribbean people that we're not crazy when we say black for Black Americans and Haiti for Haitians and Guyana for Guyanese people. We're not crazy. We're gatekeeping, which everybody should do. We're gatekeeping our ethnicity, and this is why we say when people say they're black, they could only say it from a racial category, right? And we know that a lot of you guys don't know that you don't know. So you're just saying black, but you're saying that you can only say it as a racial category. But you got to understand also that when you say black, that's also like tapping into our ethnicity. So we are going to gatekeep hard now. We like, okay, this person trying to be me, because you're saying black. Like we could never comprehend that the racial thing. That's why it's so confusing to Black Americans when people that's not Black Americans say they're black, and we know for a fact they're from Haiti or Ghana. The obvious the obvious response is you're not black. You did, because we're like, that's just common sense to us. Like, no, you say you're Jamaican, right? Yeah, you're Jamaican. So that person should say, oh no, I mean racially, I'm categorized as black, but guess what? You're only black on paper. So meaning that you have a lineage and you have enclaves to join if you want to. There's again my boy's Guyanese. Like I know his old time family. They all cool as hell. They all riders. I've never heard him say he was black. You dig? And he's a straight 100% rider. This is a guy. If I'm stuck anywhere, if he can't get me, he's sending. He paying for. You know,
Your mic is very
me
choppy.
home. This is a
I'm
complete vibe.
listening, but your mic is very choppy.
All right.
I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
You know,
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
racially black. I'd say I'd still tell somebody I'm black, but I guess that would be from a racial stance. But if I'm speaking to another black person, racially black person, I'm going to tell them I'm Guyanese.
Okay, that's backwards.
So I
I was
understand exactly what you're saying. Because when it
right.
comes
That's
to
backwards.
Caribbean people, if I speak to another Caribbean person, they'll ask me where I'm from. I'll say, I'm from Guyana. Where are you from? I'm from Jamaica. Da 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 da.
Right. But can you hear me now? I think that's backwards. I think if you're talking to somebody from the island or Africa, you should say you're black, and then so racially, hey, I'm black, and then the be specific. I say with us, I say you should say you're Guyanese, because once you say you're black, we're going to automatically assume you have slavery ties to this country. So we're going to think you like your U.S. chattel slavery black, and then once we find out you're not, we're going to feel like you played us. Like, oh shit, I thought you were black. Like that's what we're going to say. We're going to say I thought you were black. And now you got to explain that whole thing to us, and we can be like, that don't make any sense.
No, you see, that's the funny thing. Because whenever I've spoken to Black Americans and they've asked me where I'm from, I'll specifically say Guyana. It's different when you ask me where I'm from and what I've been raised around. Again, I've been raised around Black American culture. And I'm specifically saying that I grew up around Black American culture because I have a bi-ethnic cousin. And I've always been around her family. Her family practically raised me.
Okay.
And her father is an African American, foundational Black American, ties to chattel slavery. I've met his father.
Right.
So I've known Black culture, been to all the cookouts. I watched all the movies. Oh my God, I sound like a white person. But I'm
Yeah.
I know the struggle.
Yeah.
I've known the struggle because I've witnessed the struggle. And it may not have been personal towards me, but I've seen it through my uncle. And he's explained to me all of it. Well, at least what he could tell me. And I spoke with his father, and he's told me what he could tell me. And I've read their family books. I've seen what's going on with chattel slavery or what happened with chattel slavery.
Right.
So, and of course, this is not to you, but to people saying that, oh, you're not a Black American. I'm raised around the culture. So
Right.
obviously,
So
if I
so you
want
can
to
say that.
say I'm not a black, I've never claimed to be a Black American. I've never claimed to be Black American. I've always said I'm Guyanese American or I'm Carol American. There's always the descriptor terms or the identifiers before American.
Well, that wouldn't be a descriptor. All right. So let me explain that. I'm somebody who studies this right here. So that's not a descriptor. What you're doing is you're naming your ethnicity and you're correctly adding your new nationality in America, your citizenship. So when somebody say they're Italian America, they're saying my ancestry, my lineage goes to Italy, but I'm American culturally. I'm American by citizenship. So their property uh, addressing themselves. I'm Italian American. If a man says he's Nigerian American, he will be properly identify himself. His lineage and culture goes back to Nigeria, but now he has USA citizenship, and he's American, and nobody can take that away from him. So that's properly calling him, identify himself. But if a Nigerian says he's Black American, trust me, he's going to confuse Black Americans, especially when we find out he's Nigerian. So like back to my guy and his family, I ain't never heard him say he was Black American. Right? Matter of fact, I thought
I don't think I've ever heard any African or Caribbean. I'm not gonna say there's not, because there probably is, but I've never personally heard anybody say that. I've always heard, "Oh, I'm Guyanese and I'm Nigerian and I'm Jamaican." That's always what I've heard, and that's what we call ourselves. We'll call ourselves where our family's from.
okay, right, and look, I might agree with that. Okay, and that's why we tell people like, yo, we don't have a fight with you. We don't have a fight with an African, a Caribbean person, Puerto Rican, Mexican. Our fight's not with none of those people. Our fight has always been with our American government. So we always been fighting our American government way back from chattel slavery to Jim Crow, right? Our American government who we've been fighting with, never nobody else. Okay, so our fight now is with our American government because we realized, like Yvette and Tone realized the paper genocide, and then Tariq Nasheed picked up on it. So we said, okay, wow, this is crazy. Like you're adding us to. I mean, take this out. You're adding us to all sorts of people. We're talking about the Caribbean. We're to all many islands. We're talking about Sudan people, Sudan. We're talking about the Congo. I mean, just name the country and island. America has lumped us up with all of them, and they have aggregated our data with them, right? Which is a big problem. And guess what? We're the face of the black race because that's our name. So when people think of black people doing something, black people not doing something, you're going to think of black Americans first, especially in America. When they say a black man did it, the fastest black man, the strongest black man, you're going to automatically think the strongest black American, fastest black American, black American, positive and negative, right? So when it's a negative stat, black on black crime, uh, single households, when those stats are being repeated, white supremacy used that to target black Americans only. They never say, okay, the Caribbean, Africa, all people of African descent, you have this baby mama issue, you have this black on black crime issue. Nope. They use that stat to come at black Americans, right? Because they're trying to justify scientific racism. I don't even know what that is, but scientific racism was something that was around the 1860s when we were fighting for our freedom. The Confederates were trying to argue to the North, don't fight for these guys because they are animals, basically. Like they're gonna just be a burden to society and they're gonna be criminals. So that's why you got the bell curve, the book Bell Curve. You ever heard of that?
No.
Okay, so the Bell Curve is a book that was trying to scientifically explain that Black Americans' IQ is naturally lower than white people. It's a real book. Charles Murray was the author. Right. So
Was it that thing that had to do with the circumference of the brain?
no, that's
Oh,
scientific
then I'm
racism.
thinking something completely different.
Yeah, no, you're talking about 1860s, 1880s. That's scientific racism. I'm talking about bell curve, where they was basing it on the IQ test, right?
Mm.
So Charles Murray was cherry picking the test results and not considering the outliers, and made a random uh, hypothesis and said Black Americans naturally got lower IQs than white people, and this has been a talking point for white supremacy ever since the bell curve. But this book been debunked 1,000 times over by all type of scholars and coming all shapes of ethnic background. That book been debunked left and right, but they still hold that high. So what they do now is to justify scientific racism in 2026. They use the flat black. So they will, like, let's say you have humanitarian um, immigrants and you have brain gain immigrants. Are you familiar with brain gain?
Are you talking about when they specifically call us black and then using our stats of degrees or education? Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, well, that's the brain gain, right? So these are immigrants of different countries who make up their top 1%, right? So these are the smartest people in all of their country. They come to America to be resourceful, right? To help build up America. So America's a brain gain country. We always wanted the best of every country. So now these people get added to the black stat to flatten it, to show that black Americans are doing better. So they'll have all these very brilliant, very successful Africans or African descent people from different countries, and they get added to our stat to show that we're doing better. So they'll say, see, so you don't need nothing. You don't need more resources. You don't need this or that or that. You're doing better. Look at the stat. You jumped from 15% this to 35%. So just keep it going, and you'll be at 60%, right? So they use that. But when you disaggregate the data, you'll see that those people are not Black Americans. They make up the 1% of their country, and they should not be included to Black people, Black Americans, right? Because don't forget, they're being included to symbol that we're doing better because of these programs white folks set, and that's misleading. And then so the opposite. So now when people come over here from these same backgrounds, but they're not the 1%, they come over. So when you're not 1%, you come over here a different way. You become humanitarian immigrants. That means that America went and got people as refugees, as evacuees, and asylees. Now these people come into America. They're not. They can't hold their own like that 1%. They're not highly skilled and highly educated. They need resources. Okay, and a lot of them who knows their criminal background. So I'm sure some of them will come over here, and maybe some of them, we know some of them is going to add to the crime rate. And just like how they flatten out, hey, Black Americans are doing better because we got 1% of these Nigerians over here. Well, now look at the crime rate. So you guys are worse than we thought. See, we need to lock you guys up. We need another 94 crime bill. Look how dangerous you are. And these probably recent people from cartel countries, who knows what's going on in their country, and they're over here as asylees, refugees, and evacuees. They'll use them in the negative side of the crime stats and say, look how bad Black America. Look, the crime rate got worse. It went from 15% to 25% in 2 years, but they won't disclose in 2 years 3 million evacuees, asylees, and refugees had just came to that community. Like they'll skip that part, and that's what we mean by paper genocide. So this had nothing to do with immigrants. This has everything to do with white supremacy in our government, and we peep that. Like I said, through Yvette Carnell and Tone Talks, those guys peeped that. Tariq came on later, and now we're highlighting it. And for some reason, we had, I guess, like white people. See, white people slick. They're, to make it not obvious, they're going to get people of, let's say, immigrant background or even Black American background to defend the position that Tariq and Yvette is arguing against, the obvious. So they'll send people that's appearing. They're either Black American or they're representing the Black Americans who are not Black Americans, and they're sitting there saying, "No, no, that's not true," because white people know that they have a bad rep in the United States. This is why they don't like to speak on these things outright, because they know that they're not trusted in America by Latinos, anybody. Nobody trusts white people in America, so nobody know the white man better than us. White Americans better than us. Like we know that we don't trust them at all. We'll rather die than go to a hospital. So it's deep. We don't trust them because we know about medical apartheid. So it's deeper than what it is. And when you have uh, immigrants that come to the country that's not aware of that, and they speak against our experiences, like they don't know how disrespectful that is. So it gets ugly, and then you have where we're at now. And then on top of talking against us, they're calling themselves black, which is a double, triple smack in the face.
Well, you know what I will say?
Mm-hmm.
This is the first conversation that I've had with the FBA where they weren't immediately rude to me off rip.
Hmm.
That is what I will say. This conversation has been very delightful.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I see. That's what happens, and that's why I feel like I need to get in these spaces because I'm hearing the conversation, and I'm like, okay, all right. At some point, they got to get serious. They got to be about information. It can't be about you know uh, the rah rah. It has
They're
to be
quick to call me a tether.
meaningful.
Quick to call me a tether.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, and this is why I say, all right, let me get out in these spaces. Let me set the narrative correctly. You feel me? And that's why I gave the definition. A definition of a tether is an immigrant who are purposefully undermining, sabotaging, speaking against Black Americans in the most vile way possible. That's a tether. Okay, if an African or a Caribbean person ain't doing that, they just living their best life and they're just talking their truth. They're not a tether.
You know, people learn new words and like to throw them around all willy nilly.
Yeah, well, that's why you should ask them. Hey, you calling me a tether? What's the definition? And then when they give the definition, ask them, did you do anything or say anything disrespectful towards the lineage? And if they can't say yes, they say yes, they got to explain it. Like, okay, articulate uh, how I did that.
You see, that's fair. And with the points that you gave me, I will go back to the question I had before I joined. Before I joined, I asked you, are we speaking about this culturally or are we speaking about this racially?
Right.
And the conclusion I've drawn is, of course, we can't be black. Of course, we can't be Black Americans culturally. We can somewhat be tied to the culture. We can know the culture. We can have family from the culture. But at the end of the day, ethnically, we're not Black Americans. But of course, racially, we're all going to be classified as just Black.
Right. Now, look
And I
what you said.
understand the issue with that.
Now, look. Now, who is classifying you Black?
White people.
Right. So now, so now you see what's going on. So what we're saying is because white people called you something, why do you now look, hear me out. We're like, because white, see, what happens is we believe people are worshiping white people too much. White folks can't call Black Americans anything and we take it. We don't accept nothing from them, okay? Collectively, right? They can't call us SHIT anything. We're going to resent it and reject it. So what happens is the rest of the world have not experienced, like, again, people in their homeland, they are the majority. Like, there's no white people really there, right, to racial profile or call you slurs and derogatory
To
terms.
be fair, I think
Mhm.
some of the only ones I know who probably dislike white people to the extent of Black Americans are Haitians. They despise white people.
Well, we don't hate white people, right? So there's a difference. We don't hate white people. What we do is we don't trust them for good reasons. They have a track record of being distrustful. We proceed with them with caution because a lot of Black Americans got neighbors. They got, we play ball with them. We socialize with them. We go to the bar with them. But we're not white worshipers. So we don't hate them, but we are traumatized because of the history that we have with them, right? The lived experience history we had with them. Haitians hate white people for different reasons, but Haitians have been white free for 200 and some years. We've never been white free. So we always directly face this.
To be honest, I really think y'all need to find y'all a little piece of land or
So,
something and just create
well,
Solon
okay,
something.
wait, now, I wouldn't say that. See,
I
now
know it's
that,
not
see,
that
now,
easy, and I know it's not that
no,
easy. Trust
not
me,
the
I know it's
easy,
not that
not,
easy.
I ain't talking about that. I'm saying that right there. So you don't know, but that comment, folks will start calling you names because what happens is you are, and I won't say you're doing it on purpose, but you're neglecting the fact that we built the foundation of this country. right?
Oh,
So why would we
absolutely. I'll
leave?
build this country.
Right. So why we leave something we built? Now watch this. If we do that, see, America had a 400-year head start over the world because our labor. We were labor force. White folks didn't do hard labor like that. So we were the labor force for 200 and some years, 250 years before a white man actually joined the labor. See, what a lot of people do, a lot of people confuse the timeline. So white people didn't come over here as a massive labor force until 1880. So from the 1600s all the way to 1880, that was Black Americans laying the foundation. We cleared the land. Like that's actually a phrase you can Google what that means. America was a bunch of trees, bushes, swamps. We cleared the land, so we made it habitable. We made it where you could build on top of it. We cleared the bushes, the swamps. We cleared all of that. We laid the foundation. And in 1862, the way they repaired us, they gave uh, 4 million acres of land to those recent immigrants that came over. The Irish, well, a lot of Western and Northern Europeans that came over here. They gave them the land. That's called the 1862 Homestead Act. They awarded them with 4 million acres of land, 160 acres each. So the land we cleared to build on, we didn't get one nothing acre, 100 feet, nothing. They gave it all to Europeans who didn't touch it. So 400-year head start. Now you're a superpower based on our labor. We're not going to say, all right, you good, you can have that. We're going to start from scratch. No, sir. No, sir. We are 50% stakeholders in this land, and we ain't going nowhere. So this is our land. And now, if they want to give us some states, that's fine. But we doubt that's going to happen. But we don't mind if they say, hey, take 3, 4, 5 southern states. Okay, thank you. Get out the way. But we're not going to let America have what we built. Okay, so the economy was literally built off cotton. So America was a shithole before cotton. So cotton by itself made America one of the largest economies in the world. So America literally became a superpower based on the forced labor from Black Americans. So we're not going to say, yeah, because that's what they wanted, by the way. You're probably not aware of the ACS, the American Colonization Society, where they try to ship off free Black people to Liberia. So they they want to say, all right, you built up America, we're good, we got it now, leave. And we didn't fall for that. They got like 2% of 2% of 4 million to actually fall for that trap and go to Liberia. But 98% of us stayed in America. We didn't fall for that trap. We said, hell no. Frederick Douglass and those guys said, hell no. We built this land, we staying here. And we're going to fight for what's justly due to us. So I get what you're saying, but no way we're going to build something with. So in that case, all of our ancestors died in vain. We're not doing that. Our ancestors fought, dreamed of ever being free from slavery. A lot of them believe they could never. They believe 100 years of Jim Crow will never end. They never seen it end. We seen it end. We were born in. I was born in integration. You were born too. And if you were born in America, or
Yeah, I
if
was born in America.
okay, then you were born in integration as well. So a lot of us never even seen segregation. Like we just read about it. So you have people who died to hope in hopes of seeing an integrated state where they can actually roam around free with, you know, with the law protecting them. A lot of people didn't see that day. So we're not going to up and run to Liberia like Garvey wanted to do and disrespect the blood and tears that we did. And then white people love to erase us from history. Then we go to Liberia and the millions, 40 million white folks that act like we never existed. They would lie and say, "Hey, we hired these Black Americans to build the foundation. We paid them handsomely," and then they left. That's how they'll tell that story. Not doing that. By us being in America, white people have to live with the guilt every time they look at us, and they have to rest knowing they owe us, and that guilt will never leave. That burden will never leave until we're repaired. And we came a long way, right? We came in chains, and look where we're at now. We're not in chains. We're voting. We're galvanizing in peace. We got some type of little bit of power here, but they just can't lynch us with immunity anymore. So we came a long way, and we're not going to give up. 250 years on the plantation, who would have ever guessed we'll be free? 100 years of Jim Crow, who would have ever guessed we would have had civil rights? So it takes a long time, but things get done.
Well, I commend you guys on your fight.
Yeah, so now what we're doing in our fight, because when we heard about CARICOM and their reparations in 2014-15, myself, I'm older, so I had books on reparations, right? So when I heard about CARICOM with their reparation fight, I was happy for the islands. So that's why I kind of like was weirded out when we followed up a year or 2 years later with ADOS, that some people from the Caribbean wasn't happy with our. I'm like, what? I'm like, wait a minute.
I'm confused. I've never. Oh my gosh.
What's that?
Why I just can't believe the disconnect between all of us. And I'm not. Obviously, our experiences aren't the same. But we do share. Most of us share a common chain. You guys had chattel slavery in America. We had chattel slavery in South America, the Caribbean,
Right.
Africa.
No, not Africa. Africa didn't have chattel slavery.
Africa didn't have chattel slavery, but it had its own atrocities.
Name one.
Well, you had where Belgium went to the Congo. You had the scramble for Africa. They had their own
What year?
atrocities that had to
Wait,
fix.
wait, wait. What year was that?
The scramble for Africa?
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure it was in the 18,000s or so.
thousands, 1800s.
1800s. My problem.
Right, right. So look, what you're describing is the Berlin Conference. That's 1884. Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
now, so the scramble for Africa. Now, watch how we piece this together. They're gonna walk this back like detectives. When the detectives come to a crime scene, all they see is what they see, and then they got to walk it back and see how it started, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we look at the Berlin Conference. We just look at white people ransacking Africa, creating borders, colonizing, things like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you this: how did white people get so strong that they can come to Africa and do something like that? Because that was unfathomable 300 years earlier. So how did these guys become so powerful that they could ransack an entire continent of billions of people? Do you know how?
I feel like I got the answer.
Go ahead.
I mean, some of them probably sold out. I won't lie.
Okay. Nope. Well, the selling part you got right, but it wasn't sold out. They sold people. Okay, so let me back you up. So 300 years earlier, before the
Yeah,
Berlin,
they sold other Africans into
right,
slavery
right. But
to go to
look,
America.
wait, but look at
The Atlantic slave trade.
right. So check this out. So 300 years earlier, those same Africans, they sold 15 million of skilled people. Remember, America is a brain gain country. They only accept the brightest of other countries. So when white people came to purchase slaves from Africa, they handpicked the brightest, because Africa try to get sell the low, sell the lazy. White man like, hell no. White man, what white men do with football? Like they make you do jumping jacks, they do push ups. They want to make sure you are fit for what they're gonna have you do. Because white man knew you're gonna work 24/7 around the clock, and we need fit, educated people that know how to build, plant, all type of shit, right? That they can endure the sun, endure the diseases of Native America, I mean of North America. So they knew who they were getting, right? So Africa, what I'm telling you is that Africa sold 15% of their brightest and strongest and more skilled people to white people. 15 million? That's a lot of people. Now imagine if Africa, instead of selling those people, instead use those people as their own labor force to build up Africa, then we'll be having a different story right now. Africa would be a superpower, America wouldn't be. So when white people came to Africa, I know people don't know this, but white people were not as strong as they are today, or even in the 1800s. They were fairly weak. They came to Africa less than 1,000 deep, sometimes 90 deep. The Dutch was 90 in some coasts, right? They had to pay rent Africa was so strong that the white man had to pay rent as they waited for Africans to kidnap us and sell them to them. They had to pay rent. They had to ask permission to be part of the Elmina castles and these holding cells for the capture. Yeah, white folks ain't gonna do shit. White folks hired African merchants and mercenaries to go kidnap, So what they did was they contracted Africa tribal tribes to do the kidnapping and all that dirty work. White folks were not that strong. Africa was a force to be reckoned with. What I'm telling you is that that's a lot of people, when 15 million people came to Brazil, the islands, and America, these guys worked 24/7 under threat, duress, and violence to build these economies. The economies, with money, you can purchase things, right? Materials, resources. So the 15 million labor force had made white nations invincible. So what I'm telling you, in the words of Malcolm X, the chickens came home to roost after they were supplied with Africa's greatest workforce. They became super powerful nations for 300 years. They didn't bother Africa at all for 300 years. Then they leveled up as superpowers and they came to Africa as super saiyans. What I'm telling you is that that's Africa's fault. They sold these people because they had little uh, value in them, like they do now when they sell their resources to whitey man. They got little value in their resources. They sell them off. Well, they sold off 15 million people to whitey man because they had little value in them. And whitey man value these people, these resources. They do great things with the resources that Africa don't see. They can't do anything with it, or they think they can't. So they always sell it to whitey man, and whitey man get more empowered. So whitey man came back as super saiyans and said, "All right, nigga, we're about to carve this shit up." That's what happened. So they can't. That's not the same. The diasporic was completely victims. We're not responsible for nothing. Africans were in bed with white people. They sold us to them, and all they got back was guns, alcohol, K2, fentanyl, and some trinkets. That's it. And they thought they were balling. The whitey man got people, and the African man like, all right, okay, here, take them. They had no idea. White man's like, all right, we're gonna put these people to work. They're gonna build our nation, and we can't be built without these people. Because white men tried to set up colonies in America before that, and they failed miserably. They failed miserably. So no, Africa is the blame for the whitey man. All right, being a super powerful nation. Without that labor force, there's no superpower nations in Europe, and definitely not by the 1800s. You dig? No way possible. Don't forget, this is 24/7, around the clock, free labor for 300 years. It's no way the white man could have been a superpower that early without 300 years of free labor, 24/7 around the clock. No way possible. It would have took him 2,000, 3,000 years to become what they thought could become. And that's why they took the shortcut. So Africa doesn't get a pass. Africa can't say, hey, man, the white man, we want reparations. The white man came back and whooped our ass. Like, well, listen, right now in 2026, if I have if I'm a competing business with my neighbor, right? I sell my neighbor my trash, that I think trash, items that I no longer use, right? Don't forget, we got competing businesses. I sell him for pennies on the dollar. Hey man, just take this shit, bro. Just give me $10, man. I'm just trying to clear my garage. And my neighbor recycle that stuff, reshape it, burn it, whatever they do, and make instruments out of this, right? Where his convenience store has self checkout, right? I'm still trying to hire people that be stealing, lazy, calling out, and he got self checkout. This guy got he got an ATM, because with the junk I sold him, he made an ATM. He got all type of stuff in there, credit card readers. I don't got none of that. This is the 1960s, 70s, 1930s. Can you imagine that? This is the 1920s and 30s, and he got self checkouts, he got credit card, he got all this stuff. I'm 1930 material. Obviously, that's a lopsided in business. I can't go cry to American government like, hey, this ain't a free market. He got all this stuff. I don't have it. I can't compete. And this guy say, wait a minute, you had it all. You sold it to me for pennies on a dollar. Yeah, that's not a good argument. They sold 15 million people. Those 15 million people leveled up white people, and they came back because they're white. Okay, it's not like Africans thought white people were going to buy us and then we'll be just, singing and joining hands and what's the merry-go-round song? We all fall down, London bridges. Yeah, like we was doing that with white folks. They knew that they were selling us and we were not coming back. Don't forget, this is 300 years. Queen Nzinga sold 13,000 annually. They knew you were going there as slaves on a whole nother level. Okay, so these guys were not so innocent. Oh, we didn't know. Stop it. And then when a whitey man cut it off in 1808, African nations, yo, we want to sue for reparations. You can't cut us off. This is all of our economy. Whitey man did them dirty way before the Berlin Conference. Whitey man knew, like, that all of their money is from this slave trade. All right, let's cut it off now. Let's cut their whole money supply. Let's cut their economy going to collapse overnight. And we got them in 80 years. Man, they cut that slave trade off in 1808. African nations like, yo, they're like, yo, you ain't make a wholesale purchase in a while. Dutch, Portuguese, they're like, yeah, nah, we good. Nah, you good. Nah, we not ordering no more. What? What you serious, nigga? Yeah. We good. Man, they went crazy. You owe us reparations, man. You can't do that. Oh, y'all, some mother. Oh, hell no. We demand you keep. We captured 100. We captured 13,000 more. Get these niggas out of here, man. Now we got to marry them to the tribe and all this bullshit. Hell no. Okay. And so yeah, you cannot do that. You can't be responsible 100% of why these people are so powerful. And again, they had a negative history with Africans because originally they in the 1400s they came there to go just do it themselves. So it wasn't like Africans didn't know how evil they were. The white team man in the 1400s said, "Man, we're gonna go in Africa. We're gonna take these niggas, and we're gonna build up these colonies in America." Africans whooped their ass. I gotta watch my language. They kicked their ass, and a lot of white folks died from interior diseases like malaria. So they gave that up. They said it ain't gonna work. We can't go over there kidnapping people. We felt that it cannot happen. So they came back 200 years with a checkbook. How much, African man? How much? Okay, that's how that happened. Right. So greed is how it started, and greed is how it started, and greed is how it ended. They say you live by the GUN, you die, you DIE by it. Well, you live by greed, you DIE by greed. So they were greedy, selling us by 15 million for the low, pennies on the dollar. Well, guess what? The white G man, um, 300 years later, ransacked Africa by greed. They lived by greed. They got dominated by greed. That's why I say no passes. No passes. The Caribbean, Haiti, Brazil, America, yeah, we were victims. Africa was not a victim. That's a lie that's told, that's recycled. where Africans try to fit themselves in with the injured, harmed group. No, no, no. You are a enslaved. You are an enslaver, like the white T man. Okay, that's why I ask people who's your friend, the seller or the buyer, in a human trafficking case. You tell me, because I say neither. All right, so this was a great experience on TikTok. I'm gonna cut it, cut it. I'm gonna close out. I'm gonna finish up on YouTube. Close out over there. If I don't know my YouTube name, it's FBA News and Updates. We lit. I've been on YouTube for like 13 hours, something like that, something crazy like that. So catch me on YouTube. How about that? I'll flirt with TikTok again, maybe tomorrow. All right. But I see that I cannot share my screen uh, on Zoom and go live where I see that you can't do that. I guess I gotta do that OBS thing or something else. So I need CRU. I might be ready, my guy. All right. Family, we out of here. This was a great experience. I think the sister was I think she said that she appreciated the conversation. So hopefully she got a new perspective and she see things a little differently. That's the goal. The goal is to educate. Is to educate correctly, not just call names and yell at people, but it's to educate because some people sincerely just want to know. And it seemed like I don't know her, but it seemed like she really wants to just know. And she wants to just know the truth, like no more sugarcoating and being yelled at. No, she was interested in the truth. The question was, can African be blacks? She answered that. Then she found out they're only black on paper through racial construct, black, and the people who called them black on paper was their formal colonizer, who always called them dark by their skin, in a derogatory sense. And that whole paper genocide is a play. It's a play on black Americans. So I explained to her why we react a certain way with people from the motherland or the Caribbean when it comes to certain things that's being said. All right. So with that, I think I did a good job. First TikTok live, I think I did. I gave a lot of information. Okay. So maybe I'll switch the topic up tomorrow, but I wanted something similar. I think I'm gonna narrow it down where it's not so generic. So I made it generic so people could call in, but I'm gonna cleverly fix the title. Okay. I'll think of something. All right, so let me close out on TikTok. Thank you very much, everybody, Corey, and I'll see you guys possibly tomorrow. Be one. How do you close this thing? Here we go.